Good evening. You're watching Phily Live. I'm your host, Ashok Gangadean, your international connection. Tonight on Phily Live, human rights in the Islamic world. Here in America, we tend to take democracy for granted. But people around the world are struggling for democracy and human rights. When we enter different cultures, the very idea of democracy can change quite dramatically. Our guest tonight, Farrukh Goindi, has been a grassroots human rights activist in Pakistan for a number of years. As a leader of his political party and the Central Information Secretary of Pakistan's People's Party, he's been struggling for restoration of democracy in his country and emphasizing the rights of minorities, workers, and women. Farrukh, welcome to Phily Live.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to have you with us. Now, one question that I struggle with here, your party says that Islam is our faith, democracy is our polity. And here in America, when we think of democracy, there's a great separation between religion and democracy. And could you help our viewers understand the kind of democracy that will arise from the background of Islamic faith? That gives us trouble.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ashok. So the first slogan of our party is Islam our faith. It not just meaning that it's a religious party, but the second important slogan is democracy is our polity. This is more important because we believe the separation of religion from the politics. And the other party was the first party who started this campaign in 1967. And so we have a lot of opposition from the fundamentalists of that time. So because we were the people who started the first democratic movement in Pakistan. So it doesn't mean that our party is a religious party or is an Islamist party, because our main belief in politics is democracy. And a country like Pakistan, we have a lot of challenges. It's a feudal society, it's a tribal society, it is a semi-urban society and rural society. And that's why we have a lot of different tactics to do with the people and the politics. So it is our firm belief that we believe in a modern democracy, it's a liberal democracy, people's democracy. And these are just the main slogans. And the next slogan is all power to the people.
Yes.
This is very important. We believe in people's power. We don't believe that someone is the imam of the people and he have right to decide. So it doesn't mean that we believe in the religion and politics together.
Right.
And we have big opposition from the religious forces in our country.
So you're saying that your party separates really church from politics.
Of course.
It's secular.
It's a secular party.
And yet you feel that the Islamic faith gives life and informs the passion for your democracy and power to the people. I mean, I think that's hard for us to understand in America. Could you help us? How does the faith help with it?
Yes, it is very interesting. You know, the South Asian history. South Asia means Indian subcontinent, including India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. The Islam was introduced by Sufis, not by the sword, not by the mullahs, not by the clergy. So Sufi brought a lot of democratic human values. In their poetry, they adopted the local languages, Punjabi, Sindhi, Hindi, Pashto. So our flavor of Islam is quite different than the neighboring country. And our Islam means is a respect to all religion, Hindu, Christian, minorities. So the flavor of South Asian Islam is different than the neighboring Islam.
I see.
So it is different than that.
As we pursue this, let me remind our viewers that your participation in this conversation is very important for us tonight, so please pick up a phone with your questions and comments and join us, please. But continue with that, please. Could you help our viewers understand the struggles that you've had in terms of grassroots democratization and human rights?
It is very interesting and tough struggle because we had 3 military rulers. The last ruler they did coup d'etat on 12th of October 1999, last year. And we have a lot of experience of dictatorship and democracy, and the hypocritic democracy too. So during dictatorships, especially from 1977 to 1988, we have the worst military dictatorship. It was the worst military rulers in our Pakistani history, and he was a fundamentalist military ruler who protected and who promoted the fundamentalist forces against democratic forces like our party. So from 1981 we had a big democratic alliance against a dictatorship, and in this democratic struggle a lot of people they sacrificed their life, and some of them they were hanged by the military rulers. So we are very clever, you can say. We are very smart to how to face the military ruler in our country, because in our country we have a lot of problems like feudalism, tribalism, and the colonial legacy. And the new phenomena which is after 1980 is a byproduct of Afghan war. And the military ruler Ziaul-Haq, he established the fundamentalist groups against the democratic forces. But luckily, we were the successor. We were successful in our democratic struggle, because if you read the democratic history of Pakistan, the people's democratic struggle of Pakistan, you can't believe it was a democratic struggle. It was like a revolutionary struggle. So people around 70,000 people, they were in prison. And 70,000 people, they had lashes on their backs. Just they raised the slogan of democracy. They want the government of constitution. They want the restoration of democracy. And we have a lot of experience because of democratic struggle. And the people of Pakistan, especially the voters, they are well aware how to struggle against the military rulers now. That's why the last military ruler, last year, in his first speech, he promised that I will restore democracy in a real sense. He said that new democratic setup, he wants to announce something new in Pakistan regarding democracy. So he promised that I will introduce a real democracy on grassroots level. This is because of people's struggle. So,
well, we have Joanne on the line. Please join our conversation, Joanne. What is your comment?
Hi, thanks. I'm not terribly familiar with each country in that part of the world, their particular version of Islam, and you mentioned that each one is different, which is very interesting, because you tend to see on this part of the world one view of an entire part of the world. I'd like to know some specifics about, let's say, the contemporary struggles. Where do women fit in? Frankly, I'm about to say I don't know. Do women vote? I mean, I know you've had a leader, a female leader. I don't really know women, minorities, non-Islamic people. Where do they fit in? What are the everyday restrictions or concerns or problems that your party is trying to deal with?
Well, Joanne, thank you very much for that. That's an excellent question, Farrukh. Could you help us with that?
okay, you know, this is very interesting thing in the world media now. We have a lot of objections from the Western intelligentsia and media and Democratic Party, because Pakistan is a well-focused country now, and I'm happy that Pakistan is well-focused. This is a check, but they can't see what is happening in the neighboring Gulf country. So there's no women's rights, but nobody is focusing. But in our country, because there's a struggle against that kind of traditions, because of feudal culture, because of tribal culture, because of oppressed culture from the dominating class. They don't want to give freedom to women. They don't want even give freedom to men, the poor people. So it's a poor country. It's not a women's rights. It's also the men's rights. It is a total human rights issue. So that's why Pakistan is well focused, and as compared to other countries, we have at the same time we have a democratic tradition, the tradition of democratic struggle. So my observation is this, that Western media should concentrate on the other countries also. And on the other way, it is the best that this is a check on our society, and we want some democratic support from the Western and the regional country. They have some democratic movement.
Right. Now, Joanne's question, part of it that's not yet explored, is in terms of ethnic diversity, and so we'll come back to that, because right now we have another caller. Lawrence, please join our conversation.
Hello.
Yes. Hi. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. I just would like to quote a surah from the Quran, where it says, "Some say there will be three, the dogs being the fourth among them. Others say there will be five, the dog being the sixth. guessing at the unseen, yet others say we are 7, the dog being the 8th.
Do you have a question for us, Lawrence?
They are numbered. None knows but few about Allah. And all I would like to say is that Allah is the most powerful and the most great, and He does see all things, and that all my brothers and sisters across the world stay strong because Allah is one. And peace to everyone, because that's what Allah, that's what
Lawrence,
Islam
thank you very much for joining our show tonight, and this is an example of someone who has very strong religious passion, and bringing up the question again of politics. But could you resume the question, Farrukh, about ethnic diversity? Could you help our audience understand in your locale, in Pakistan, what is the picture in terms of ethnic diversity, and how do you cope with it?
You know, Pakistan is a new country. It's a 53 years old country, just, but the civilization is 6,000 years old. So it is one of the oldest civilization, the Indus Valley civilization. And we have 4 provinces main. Politically, we have 4 provinces, but we have a lot of cultures. We have a lot of regional culture inside the provinces. So our party, they respect all culture. They want to protect all culture. In the same time, they want to modernize the society. And you know, we have a lot of challenges in the society. It's a dynamic society, it's an active society.
What are the ethnic minorities, for example, that you're dealing with?
Say 97% people are Muslim and 3% are non-Muslim, and mostly they are Christians. And party like PPP, SB, and some other main party, they want to protect the minority rights. For example, the second last military dictators, he made some constitutional amendment. He did some constitutional amendment. So there was a joint electoral system. So he introduced separate electoral system. He wanted to separate the minorities. He made a line of demarcation between Muslims and the non-Muslim.
Right.
And we don't believe it, because we are one of the oldest people in this region, in South Asia. So we want to protect all communities, all nationalities, all ethnic groups, all regional cultural groups, and the same time minorities. So our party, even now, we are struggling against that kind of laws who impose some very worse kind of situation against minorities.
Earlier in the show, you said that your faith comes from a Sufi background,
Yeah.
and now you're stressing equality among the people and across diversity. Is there a connection there?
Yes, Sufism.
Could you explain that,
Yes.
please?
You know, Sufism is a very deep philosophy. It is on the earth. It is down to the earth, and it is based on real human values. It is based on non-violent, with total social justice, with equality, and the Islam which was introduced. Again, I am repeating, like the Islam was introduced by Bulle Shah, Baba Farid, Sachal Sarmast, and these kind of Sufi scholars. They were Sufi saints. They were not religious leaders. They behaved themselves as a most democratic person in his life. They never preach anything. They never even preach Islam. They behave Sufi tradition. They practice Sufi tradition. They respect the low caste Hindu at that time, 700 years before.
So you're saying that in the Pakistan situation, the Islam comes from a Sufi origin,
Yes.
and gives it a different orientation that supports the democratic values. That's what I'm
Yes,
hearing
yes.
you saying. Iskandar is on the line. Iskandar, please join us. What is your comment, please?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I was listening to the commentary, and it seems to me that basically what is being portrayed in the news media, and especially from the so-called countries of Western Europe, etc., is that they want to modify the Islamic approach. Now, in every area, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, there are extremes or variations with the practice of the particular religion. But it is always the Muslims are terrorists, the Muslims are subjugating women. Frankly, would you reflect on this question yourself, and then I'll back off.
Iskandar, thank you very much for this question. I don't know if you understood it. I think he is raising the question that that there seems to be a perception of Islam as being more exclusivist and violent and so forth. And I think you've been developing a Sufi orientation. Could you speak to this point?
You know, even Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was migrated to Medina, from Mecca to Medina, he established the first city-state in Islamic history. And it was a city-state, and the first written constitution in human history was the Misake Medina. We call the Medina Agreement. So he introduced a real primitive Islamic concept of democracy, and he protected all communities. And it is on the record of history that he protected the Jews, even the Jews' trade, and he gave total rights of trade to Jews and rights to Christians and all other religion. He didn't impose any kind of thing, even Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the monarchs after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if a king, if a dictator like Ziaul Haq, he claimed, I am a Muslim Khalifa and this is Islam. We don't believe that is Islam.
Could you help us here? Because in the West, I think the caller is bringing this up, there's a perception of a kind of fundamentalist attitude that can be exclusivist, and I think he's challenging that, and you're giving a different impression. Could you speak about the fundamentalist aspect of this?
You know, there are different phases in Islam. The Spanish Muslim period was the most glorious period in Islamic history. The Ottoman Empire, I'm not talking at the decline of the period of Ottoman Empire. In the start, they were in a way they were democratic, but the Spanish Muslim period was very democratic. And even now, this is a new phenomenon, the Islamic fundamentalist movement, and this is because of Afghan war. You can't see any militant Islamic movement before 1979, when Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. People like us who believe in real democracy, who believe in real democracy on grassroots, we oppose the Russian or Soviet invasion. But at the same time, 120 countries, and the leading country was the Western country like USA, they brought a lot of fundamentalists in Afghanistan. So we opposed both kind of attempts. So this Muslim or Islamic fundamentalism was emerged after 1980, and now it is a big problem for us because they brought drugs, they brought armament in our society, violence. So they are not popular in our country.
So it's a recent phenomenon. It's not at the heart of this.
Yes, it's not part of
it. We have is it Akmal? Please join us, Akmal.
Yes, Akmal.
There's one question. Actually, it's not a question. Islam is a religion which is a universal religion, and that has the implementation through the individual's actions and deeds. If I claim that I am a Muslim, and if I do not act according to the Islamic laws, which has been laid down in Quran, and which has been according to our...
We've lost the voice on that. I'm very sorry, we've lost the voice on that. Did you follow the direction?
Which I conceive. You know, I don't have any right to kill anyone. Even state don't have right to kill anyone on his belief or on her belief. This is a relation between me and God. Whether I'm a good Muslim or a bad Muslim, on the judgment day, he will decide. So in Islam, the mullahs, they always promote the Hukukul Khuda, the rights of God. And this is the one pillar of Islam. But the other pillar, which is very important, the people's right. So that is very important, the relationship with the people, with all people. So the Mullah's Islam is quite different, and that is not Islam. This is clergy, and there is no space of clergy in Islam, because in Islam, Islam is a deen. It is not a faith. It is a deen. So in Islamic philosophy, the God have right to do anything. Whether my faith is wrong, I am not a good Muslim, I am a gunagar, I am a sinner, but God will decide.
Yes, I would like to pick up the theme of non-violence in a moment, because as you know, this is Mahatma Gandhi's birthday.
Yes.
And this raises all questions about peace and non-violence, and I know you're playing an important role in that. But we now have Shwav on the line. Please join us. What's your question or comment?
I just have a question about the human rights in Pakistan. they say we have a human rights in Pakistan. I was in Pakistan like a year and a half ago.
Yes.
And I was stopped by a police officer over there, which I'm a U.S. citizen. And they arrested me because I didn't pay him any money.
Yeah.
And in Islam, it didn't say a corruption, you know. But when I was there, I saw the entire country is crap. So everybody is trying to make money out of the people who comes from overseas. I was stopped by a police officer by custom at the airport, and they asked me for US dollar to pay them, and which I paid them $35.
I see where you're. Yes, thank you so much. Just,
I
could you please
understand.
comment on
He's
this?
right. You know, all institution of state has been corrupted, and this state, the Pakistan or South Asian states, India, is a legacy of British colony. So this is not Islam. They just claim that this is Islamic state, and this is true. The police is the most violated institution regarding human rights, and the positive thing at the same time, people are demanding to establish a new democratic system in the country, on the regional cultural basis, on the local basis.
And your party is going to play a role in that.
Yes, our party is the first party, and the person who introduced this kind of philosophy in politics, his name is Dr. Mubashir Hassan. He was the finance minister of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, the first elected prime minister. So they realized after their first democratic government, the system is centralized. So now he started campaign in 1974, and he realized that our system, because of British colonial system, this is a colonial system with feudal, tribal and mafia culture. So now our party adopted a new philosophy with other slogan, the devolution of power. We want to decentralization of
Devolution.
devolution,
Yes.
yes. We want a real democracy on grassroots level. So in this way you can protect the minorities, you can protect the culture, tradition, and you can make your own government, and we want total reform in police, judiciary, education, and the parliamentary system and the parliamentary system.
That's very helpful. I think that raises questions about the literacy and illiteracy in democracy. But first, let me pick up the other theme about that I've alluded to Gandhi. We know that the disputed, heatedly disputed issue in Kashmir, the questions of nuclear weapons abounding. You did something quite bold. You're the leader of what led to a peace train that went from Pakistan into India. I think it was last April.
Yeah.
And this really, is a bold thing to do in terms of the climate now. Could you tell our viewers, please, a little about that peace train?
Again, I want to, it was not just my effort, it was effort of Pakistanis and Indian people. So there is a forum, it was established 7 years before, Pak India People's Forum for Peace and Democracy. So we started a peace campaign between two countries. And now this is the first year. And after a big clash on Kargil, Kashmir, 2 years before, our group was the first group who went to India in April, and there was a joint peace convention, and I led that peace train to India. And there was around 200 Pakistani intellectual writers, women activists, human rights activists, labor leaders, poets and journalists. And there was a peace convention in Bangalore. And we issued...
Bangalore is in India.
In Bangalore, in India, in South India, very important
city. So you
city.
cross borders.
We cross border and we travel around 80 hours on the train.
Right.
We spend more than 80 hours in a train.
And this was to promote dialogue in the midst of
Yes.
all of the violence and
Yes.
escalation of weapons
Yes.
and so forth.
And we have a lot of opposition from fundamentalists, Muslim fundamentalists and Hindu fundamentalists. And at the same time, the establishment of both sides, they don't want a real peace in the region.
This is the kind of thing, I'm sorry to interrupt you, this is the kind of thing that Gandhi would have really appreciated, crossing the borders after the partition to really, but we're running out of time, and Frank is on the line. Frank, I think this is the last opportunity to join us. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Ashok, and it's a great pleasure to see the dialogue with you and Go India. I have a question. I'm curious on the interpretation of Islam that Go India is working out and that you're discussing, which would emphasize the elements of Sufi and the connection to Gandhi, which I much appreciate. I would like to know if Go India would believe that the Islam in the contemporary world has the internal resources to develop a critique of itself as we might have then
a philosophy of Islamic religion. We know that the Islamic tradition
I
has
think we have
contributed
to-
much to
Thank
Arabic
you.
philosophy.
Thank you so much for that interesting question. We don't have much time, so a very brief answer, please, Farrukh.
First of all, there is a big issue that there is a clash between Islam and West. I don't agree on this concept. There is no clash between Islamic country or Islamic civilization. You know, the Islam in Morocco is different than Islam in South Asia. Whether our basic faith are same, but the culture is very important, and Islam is very flexible, very flexible. The mosque, the architecture of Indian mosque is different than the Algerian mosque. So it is very flexible, and the South Asian flavor of Islam is quite different, and especially regarding the Western country, there is no clash. But I want to request the Western intelligentsia and the policymaker, please don't interfere our problems.
Right.
There are some regional strategic interest of Western rulers, and they have to educate their people. They want to, they don't want to tell the true story of our countries.
Well, Farrukh, time is just about up, and we have so many questions we did not discuss, like the questions of literacy, the question of Kashmir.
Yes.
And I would just like, in closing, we have about a minute left, to give you a chance to share your dreams with our viewers here. What is your sense of the future? Are you optimistic? Where do you stand on that?
I'm not just optimistic, I'm realistic optimistic. And I'm very hopeful about our society, especially the Pakistan. It is part of South Asia. And people are discussing to establish a new system. We are not discussing the personalities. We are not discussing the dynasties. The people are demanding to establish a new police, a new judiciary, a new education system, a real democracy. They want a peaceful society. And I am very optimistic. It's true from my heart, from my soul, that people want a real democratic modern system with local values and culture, with respect of Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, and other religion in Pakistan. So, and the youth is very dynamic, and they will successful. I am very sure.
Thank you so much. This has been very edifying.
Thank you very much.
Farrukh. And thank you for watching Phily Live. Tomorrow night, Deborah discusses the upcoming transgender conference, and I'll return next week with choreographer Roni Koresh. Up next in WYBE, Bert Wolf, Travels and Traditions. See you next Monday. I'm Ashok Gangadean. Good night.